Good morning. I'm the Reverend Rachel Hayes, minister of the Unitarian Universalist Society of Amherst. I use she, her pronouns. Welcome to you. Old friends and new, young and old, in the Zoom and in the sanctuary, you are an essential part of our celebration today. Whether today is your first or your 1000th Sunday in our midst, we are stronger because you are with us. We are one people of many beliefs, many origins, sexualities, and genders. We are all growing, all learning, all loved. Just as you are welcome here. Today we're talking about finding joy and poetry in gender. We'll also share a time of spoken joys and sorrows. I'm glad to welcome our Youth and Young Adult Coordinator, Collee Williams, and UUSA member, Emma Livingston, on Zoom to help me lead the service this morning. Collee and Emma had planned to be in the sanctuary with us this morning, but they were both exposed to COVID this week and have chosen not to share that risk with us today. And you may notice that I take my mask off to speak and put it back on again to sing. I and anybody else who unmasks has taken a COVID test this morning. Our congregation has made the choice to prioritize the vulnerable rather than the comfortable with our masking policy. It's part of how we take care of one another. And Emma is going to call us to worship.
I call us to worship with these words from Sharon Wiley. We speak so often of brokenness in religious life. Let us speak today of wholeness. You are welcome here, all of you. Every part of you beautiful just the way you are. Here, you do not need to be something more or something less. No holding back, no hiding, no exerting yourself, no trying to do more or be more. You have inherent worth and dignity. Nothing to prove here, nothing to prove to me, or the person sitting next to you, or to the children, or to anyone. You don't have to try and be witty, or more quiet, or more outgoing. You are beautiful. Every part of you beautiful, just the way you are. You do not need to change anything about yourself to be welcome here. Your skin, your hair, your belly, your limbs, your face, all beautiful just the way they are. You are extraordinary, each and every one of you different from each, and beautiful in your own beautiful way. Breathtaking. Let us worship together.
All right, everyone. I'm going to invite us to light the chalice together. So I invite you to say the chalice lighting words with me. We light this flame to invite a world of peace, where we heal the wounds, where we share what we have with one another, where justice is another word for relationship, and we listen for what love has to say. Please rise in body or spirit for hymn number 346 in the gray hymnal. Come sing a song with me.
Come sing a song with me. time. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me, that I might know you're mine. And I'll bring you home when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me, that I might know you're mine. And I'll bring you home when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me, that I might know you're mine. And I'll bring you home when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time.
Good morning. So today I am going to read you a story called Red, a Crayon Story. I know we don't have many kids here right now, but if they would like to come forward, or if anyone else would like to come forward. Oh, I saw that. I saw that, Lauren. You're welcome to come and join us down here. So this book, like I said, is called Red, a Crayon Story by Michael Hall. And I hope that we have the images, yes we do, up on the screen as well. I'm gonna come down, this is silly. He was red. Just gonna let the screen catch up to where we are. He was red. But he wasn't very good at it. Oh dear, says Olive. His teacher thought he needed more practice. I'll draw a red strawberry, then you draw a red strawberry, said Scarlet. You can do this, really. But he couldn't, really. Like this? asked Red. Oh my, let's try again, says Scarlet. His mother thought he needed to mix with other colors. Why don't you two go out and draw a nice round orange? A really big one, says Yellow. A really orange one, says Red. But they made a big greenish one instead. Yuck. Oops. His grandparents thought he wasn't warm enough. Your class is making self-portraits for Parents' Night. Wear this warm red scarf. Nice, it's so you. But it wasn't. Oh dear me, says his grandmother Silver. Everyone seemed to have something to say. Sometimes I wonder if he's really red at all, said Amber. Don't be silly, it says red on his label, says Hazelnut. He came that way from the factory, said Cocoa Bean. Frankly, I don't think he's very bright, says Fuchsia. Well, I think he's lazy, said Grape. Right, he's got to press harder, said Army Green. Really apply himself, said Steel Gray. Give him time, he'll catch on, says Sunshine. Of course he will, says Sea Green. But he didn't catch on. Green frog, brown cow, black sheep, red ack. All the art supplies wanted to help. The masking tape thought he was broken inside. This will help hold you together. The scissors thought his label was too tight. One snip should do it. I thought he wasn't sharp enough. Stay still now. But even with all our help and all his hard work, he just couldn't get the hang of it. One day, he met a new friend. "Will you help me make a blue ocean for my boat?" asked Barry. "I can't. I'm red." "Will you try?" So he did. "Thank you. It's perfect." "You're welcome. It was easy." And he didn't stop there. Bluebells, blue jeans, bluebird, blueberries, a blue whale. I'm blue. He was blue, and everyone was talking. My son is brilliant. Who could have known he was blue? I always said he was blue. It was obvious. His blue ocean really lifted me. All his work makes me happy. His blue strawberries are my favorites. He's so intense. I'm going to make a green lizard with him, a really big one. I hear he's working on a huge new project. He's really reaching for the sky. And he really was.
Thank you. So here we go. Go in beauty, peace be with you, till we meet in our hearts in the light. Go in beauty, peace be with you, till we meet in our hearts in the light.
Growing up in the Unitarian Universalist faith, I was taught to learn about established structures with an open mind and to assert my boundaries and communicate my needs. I learned how to find a way for myself in the world that felt right for me. These lessons have given me a reliable set of tools for navigating the world. We've talked about our interconnected web as both ecological and human, and gender is one part of how we interact with each other. It is embedded deeply in how we know ourselves, how we interact with each other, and how we shape our society. Understanding this component of our interconnected web and how we fit into it is an important part of understanding the ecosystem of our society. But even if all this seems distant or out of reach right now, we can fall back on the inherent worth and dignity of every person and compassion in human relations. And the central part of the new proposed values of our UUA covenant, love. We can approach these unknowns from a place of openness, compassion, and love. Part of this journey is learning the ways to express that love to each other in ways that feel comfortable to each of us. The framework of the UU principles and the skills I learned growing up were part of the toolkit I needed when I started out exploring my own gender identity. I use they, them pronouns and introduce myself that way. But honestly, the pronouns I use are a small part of the collective whole that is my gender. My gender is a messy and beautiful interaction that encompasses so much more. It's my sexuality, my fatness, my love of loud earrings and oversized sweaters, and all the ways I was taught how to be. I use the prefix trans to describe my gender, for me, not as in across, but through. I move through gender. Trans as in transient, transcendent, transformational. In her 1998 book, Trans Liberation, Beyond Pink or Blue, Leslie Feinberg writes, "Gender is the poetry each of us makes out of the language we are taught." Gender is the poetry each of us makes out of the language we are taught. Gender is not something we are born knowing or understanding. It is something we're taught. Many of us probably have memories about how we learned the rules around gender. Boys should play with trucks, girls should play with dolls, boys should grow up to be athletes, businessmen, or doctors, girls should grow up to be mothers, nurses, or teachers. Boys shouldn't cry, and girls shouldn't get angry. We learn these oftentimes through trial and error, through how people respond to our behavior. Sometimes it's subtle, and sometimes not so much. Knowing these rules isn't inherent at birth. It's something we learn as we grow up. And these rules depend on how you grow up. The expectations surrounding gender are very different depending on your race, class, and culture. We use the tools we are provided with to make our way in the world. For some of us, this has meant having to stick very closely to expectations of gender to keep us safe. For some of us, it has meant divesting ourselves from these expectations. The language we are all taught is shaped by a lot of circumstances and by people's expectations of us based on how they perceive our gender. So what does it mean to make poetry out of this language? Part of it is learning what the language is that you're working with, understanding what rules you are and are not following, and figuring out if those rules make sense for you. Can you think of some ways you follow the gender rules? Can you think of some ways that you break them? As I started exploring gender for myself, I didn't stop wearing dresses. I did, however, stop wearing clothes meant to restrict my body size or shape. I now shop for different items of clothes in different sections of the store based on how I like my clothes to fit, not how clothing companies think clothes should fit a body like mine. For me, poetry means listening to my own experience and trusting myself. I can stay close to aspects of the gender I was taught that feel right to me and let go of those that don't. I can also be intentional about learning new languages of gender and looking for language in new places. The form of this poem might be gender norms, and the style might be a broad spectrum between femininity and masculinity. Maybe the words are expressions of gender, and maybe the deeper meaning is a sense of identity. Writing our own poetry, we would certainly each have our own interpretations, and each person would find styles that feel more like home for them. Maybe the writing is flowery and verbose, or maybe it's dense and concise. Maybe the words on the page make a shape, and maybe reading it feels like singing. Maybe writing poetry feels natural, or maybe it feels clunky and out of practice. Maybe your poetry fits a traditional style, or maybe it takes a form of its own. Whatever your poetry, it is uniquely yours, shaped by the language you know and what you've been taught, but maybe it's also something a little bit new. A lot of times when we talk about blue crayons with red labels, we talk about how hard it is to not be able to draw a red strawberry and the pressure from other crayons to get it right. But what if we focus on the drawings at the end? The blue crayon didn't change himself, but his outlook. He recognized that his strengths were in drawing the sky and the ocean. He may find sometimes that he likes drawing blue strawberries too. There is beautiful poetry in that wide open sky at the end. And there is poetry in the very crayon asking for help with the ocean. I wonder what other kinds of poetry that little crayon will go on to write.
All right. Hi, everyone. So once again, my name is Collee Williams. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm the Youth and Young Adult Coordinator for the Unitarian Universalist Society of Amherst and the Unitarian Society of Northampton and Florence. So in the spirit of Schuyler's song, I would like to begin my reflection by telling you a story. It starts in childhood. From the time I was a toddler until about age 5, I had long, curly blonde hair and was often assumed to be a girl by strangers. I don't have many conscious memories from this time in my life, but I like to think that these experiences had a subconscious impact on my gender expression and performance later on in my life. And yet, despite these early experiences, by the time I was in middle school, I had become adept at following the spoken and unspoken rules of what it meant to perform gender as a boy. These included dissociating from my natural range of emotions, other than anger, never crying in public, and valuing competition over cooperation, especially in sports. Even though I deeply resonated with the story of Ferdinand the Bull as a child, a bull who spent all day smelling flowers and never wanted to fight the matadors and other bulls like he was expected to, I learned how to hide the more sensitive side of myself by the time of my preteen years and embraced a more traditional and expected masculinity. I didn't do this because it reflected who I was inside. I did this in order to survive the very binary and gendered expectations of middle and high school. In fact, my high school was so stuck in the gender binary that we weren't even allowed to wear gowns for graduation. Girls had to wear dresses, and boys had to wear tuxes. There were no alternate dress options, and failure to comply with the dress code for your assigned sex at birth meant not being able to participate in the ceremony with all of your peers. Looking back on the experiences of my youth, it's easy to see how much of a performance this masculinity was. And I think that even if I still identified as a man now, it would be a performance. Because at the end of the day, I agree with the feminist theorist Judith Butler that gender is a social performance rather than a predestined fate, whether you identify with your sex assigned at birth or not. As one of my college friends' tattoos reads, biology is not destiny. I think that is a helpful reminder in a culture where there's so much of an emphasis placed on gender reveal parties for babies and on all of the automatic assumptions that are made about how someone will turn out to be in the world based on how they were born. Biology is not destiny, rather it is a study of living systems, which are always undergoing processes of change. My experience and performance of gender has likewise always been undergoing a process of change. It has never been fixed to one spot permanently. Deep down, I've always known this truth subconsciously, long before I had the more nuanced language of gender identity that I have now. Holding on to the truth of my gender fluidity in a very binary culture, which constantly tries to distill people like me into one of two supposedly universal and fixed gender categories, like at my high school graduation, is a challenge every day. I don't want my existence to be a media talking point or a flashpoint in the supposed culture wars of American politics. My existence is not up for debate, and neither is the existence of any other trans or gender nonconforming person. I just want to be me. Work has been another area of my life where I've been impacted by gender norms and expectations. My first job when I was a teenager was helping out a family friend doing carpentry and contracting work, a very stereotypically male profession. In the past several years, I've worked as a teacher and more recently as a librarian, both stereotypically feminine professions. I've learned so many valuable lessons from working in caretaking professions, and I don't think I would be the same person without those experiences. I've learned to value cooperation, to embrace the nurturing sides of myself, and how to set boundaries when necessary. I've also learned and witnessed how caretaking work is often undervalued and underpaid under patriarchy and capitalism, and I want to work to see that change in my lifetime. Luckily, it seems like some things are starting to change for the better in society. They, them pronouns, which are often used by gender nonconforming people like me, are becoming more widely used and accepted, even by people who don't fully understand what they mean. You don't have to know all of the correct and nuanced terms of gender identity to respect and use the pronouns that someone uses. Trans celebrities like Laverne Cox and Elliot Page are increasing visibility and changing the cultural narratives around transness and the gender binary. Cisgender actors like Emma Watson and Daniel Radcliffe are speaking out against the transphobia and fear-mongering of authors like J.K. Rowling, while raising awareness of organizations like the Trevor Project that provide so many crucial mental health resources to LGBTQ youth. It can feel challenging to not be weighed down by all of the toxic voices in our culture that mock and criticize trans people. And yet it's the stories of trans resilience and cisgender allyship that help me get out of bed in the morning and encourage me to be myself while fighting for a more liberatory world beyond the confines of patriarchy and its deeply embedded gender binary. A world where the poetry of gender is open wide and all have opportunities to participate in its verses in whichever way feels right to them.
One, two, three.
Cleared off the table, leftovers saved, washed the dishes and put them away. I told you a story, tucked you in tight, at the end of your knockabout day. As the moon sets its sails to carry you to sleep over the midnight sea, I will sing you a song no one sang to me. May it keep you good company. You can be anybody you want to be. You can love whoever you will. You can travel any country where your heart leads, and know that I will love you still. You can live by yourself, you can gather friends around, you can choose one special one, and the only measure of your words and your deeds will be the love you leave behind when you're done. There are girls who grow up strong and bold. There are boys quiet and kind. Some race on ahead, some follow behind. Some go in their own way at times. Some women love women, some men love men. Some raise children, some never do. You can dream all day, never reaching the end of everything possible for you. Don't be rattled by names, by taunts, by games, but seek out spirits true. If you give your friends the best part of yourself, they'll give the same back to you. Oh, you can be anybody you want to be. You can love whoever you will. You can travel any country where your heart leads, and know that I will love you still. You can live by yourself, you can gather friends around, you can choose one special one, and the only measure of your words and your deeds will be the love you leave behind when you're done.
Spirit of life and death, love beyond naming, unfolding truth, We show up as we are to this moment and to one another. We show up full of grief and compassion for the people of Turkey and Syria in the wake of a destructive earthquake. We mourn for those who have died, and we open our hearts to all those trying to find a way forward from a world turned upside down. We rage against anti-trans and anti-queer bills in state legislatures this week. We affirm the beauty of gender diversity in the human experience, in our congregation, and in all the communities of our lives. We hold our many joys and sorrows this morning, those spoken aloud and those held in our hearts. We're grateful for the invitation to deeper compassion and to be present to one another in our journey of life. Amen. Blessed be. Please remain seated for our meditation hymn, How Could Anyone? We're going to sing it through 3 times. It goes once to remember it, once to sing it to somebody, maybe somebody sitting next to you, maybe somebody you're thinking of, and once to sing it to your own heart. Please join me in this sung meditation.
How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul.
I invite you to join me in the words to extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. So our announcements are going to start with that second offering. And the offering will go, this will also be a split offering. It's going to be split between the Global Fund for Human Rights, which is 100% of the money collected is going to civil aid workers in Turkey doing the recovery work. The other half will go to the white helmets. These are the people you see on the news in Syria looking for survivors. So I invite you to give as generously as you can. All of this money is going to help with the earthquake. To say about that offering is that we're not collecting all week for this. We want them to get the money as fast as possible. So if you didn't have the cash in your wallet today, or you're on Zoom, click the links that Kyle put in the chat for you, or it was also in the announcement email that went out late in the week. Both of those organizations, they will be really grateful to get your money as fast as you can send it. Moving on to slightly happier things. If you have been waiting to sign our membership book and become an official member of the UUSA, today is your day. Please come talk to me. I'll be hanging out by this table after the postlude, and we will welcome you with all of our most formal informality that this congregation can muster and bring you in a celebration of whoever shows up, as we do. We had originally scheduled to have an in-person pronouns practice lab in the conference room after the service, and Emma was going to lead that, and they are very obviously not physically present in the sanctuary today. So it is now going to be in the main room of the Zoom after the service, and Thursday at 6 p.m. on Zoom again at this same worship Zoom link that we send out every week. And we will have an in-person one, but we don't know when yet. So if you are eagerly awaiting that, you can listen and read all of the announcements very diligently, or you can sign up. Libby has a special clipboard ready.
It's right outside on the table. You can put your name and email address so that you make sure that you get notification of when that's going to be.
So we'll let everybody know, but if you give us your name and email, we will make sure you get a special email when that's scheduled. Next week is the hymn sing. We want to know what hymns you want to sing, so please fill out that form and we'll work it in. Unless we get an abundance of responses, and then we might have to curate. But they all come around eventually. Ed Tick's book launch is Sunday the 26th at 1 p.m., so look forward to that. And everything else is in those beautiful weekly announcements that Leah sends out every week, which you can get by following the link in the Zoom, talking to Libby, filling out one of those other small clipboards. This morning has involved a lot of congregational talent and flexibility. So I want to thank the choir for your beautiful music this morning, and Brenda, and Steve and Kyle for running tech this morning, and Jenny and Libby for greeting. And I heard there's coffee, so thank you, Fran, and anybody else helped with social hour. Thank you to Collee and Emma for sharing your wisdom and experience with us this morning. For your willingness to just pivot so fast and bring us this service in a slightly reimagined way, including letting go of some really beautiful music that you were going to play in person. So everybody who was on Zoom, do look up Skylar's song, and I can help you find the link for that because it's beautiful. Okay. I invite you to rise in body and spirit. Place your hands over your heart or reach out to someone near you as we sing our closing song.
Amen.